Welcome to TechBrothersIT. Today we are going to work on one of the scenario. We get the files from our client that we need to load on daily basis to SQL Server Table. Sometimes there are chances that client might provide the same file again or files again. In that case, we don't want to load those files and we want to move those files to the rejected folder instead of reloading them. And the last part, if the file is new, we validate it, okay, and then we load that file and move to the archive folder. So what I have here, I have a input folder where the files will arrive, or they will provide the files in this folder. Next, I have an archive folder where we will move the files after successful load. And if the files are already loaded, then what we will do, we will move them to the rejected folder. So that's the flow. Now in this video, what we are going to learn, we are going to learn how to read the files from a folder by using for each loop container, how to log the file names into SQL Server Table for validation and check in if the file exists already or not, how to check if the file is already loaded, and we will build our expressions in Execute SQL Task, and how to use file name task, how to use file system task to move the files to the reject folder in SSIS package if the file is already loaded. And the last one is how to move the file to the archive folder the very first time file received, this is a new file we loaded and it never been loaded, so we will load the file and then move to the archive folder. Here on this SSMS, I have a table created called DBO customer. It has customer ID and customer name. And why I created that one, because the definition of our files has customer ID and customer name. So all the files what I have, they are containing the same metadata, so customer ID and customer name. That's how the files are. You can see the other files as well, and there are one record in each of them. Now let's go and create our SSIS package. Open SSDT or bids. I have SSIS 2012, so I'm using SSDT. In your case, if you are using 2000 or SSIS 2008, you will be using bids. Right click here on the SSIS packages, create a new SSIS package. Now in this one, we will create three variables. One variable for our input folder. Why I create variables always? So we can use them in configuration and we can pass the values by using the configuration. And that's how we can change the folder paths on different environments such as UAT, QA and prod. Now here we go, variables, add a new variable, input folder, string, put the value here. Next one is we called it archive folder, ARCH folder. This is going to be string. Then I have to grab the value for archive folder path, copy, come here, paste. The last one we have to create here for now is reject folder, and we will be using string as well, and reject folder path, provide that. We are going to go step by step and create more variables or expressions, whatever is required. So the very first thing, we have to read the files from the folder. We will be using for each loop container to read the files from the folder. And here open your for each loop. Let's rename this one, say read files from folder. It is better we say input folder. Now right here, open it, go to collection. We have for each file enumerator already selected as we are reading the file, so this is what we will be using. And next part, I don't want to provide the hard code value here for the folder, so I will be using some expressions, and I will be using a variable. So for the directory, I will be using the input folder path variable. Hit OK, and we will be reading the file name and extension. In this case, we are not interested to read the fully qualified path. I will tell you the reason, because I will be saving the file name and extension in the SQL Server Table for validation, so I don't want to use the fully qualified path and then write my substring and take only the file name and extension. I can do it, but I just for this demo I'm going to use only the file name and extension, and I'm only interested to read the .txt files. So that's great. We have file name. Next, we want to save this variable. We will call it file name with extension, so we can call it simply file name. We know that extension is coming with it, and it is going to be string type. Hit OK, and this index is 0. That's the very first variable we are having it. If we are having more variable, the index number will increase, and that's it. Now this for each loop is going to loop through the folder and give us a file name and extension. The second part, we want to validate if that file is already loaded or not loaded. What I have here, I have created a table that will save the information. It's called file load status table. It will save a file, I'm gonna just call it ID, file ID, and then this is integer number, just to keep like how many records we have loaded, how many times we have loaded the files. And then we have file name, that's going to be file name with extension, and then file load time. This table we will use to insert the information and validate the information if the file is already loaded or not loaded. Let's create this table. Right now this table does not have any values or any rows inserted in this one, and here are the expressions that I'm going to use. So I will be using declare @file name variable. Then let's say if I will provide customer file.txt, and if this value exists in this table, it is going to return me 1, and if it does not exist, it is going to return me 0. So that's good thing. Let's say if we run this one, and let's see what it returns. It returns a 0 because this file does not exist, and we are going to use these expressions, or sorry, we are going to use this statement as expression, and I'm going to copy and show you how we will use it. And here I will use Execute SQL Task, and we will call it ESQL check if file loaded, and then double click here, go to the connection and make a connection to the database. I have already connection to the test database. I can delete it and create a new one for you and show you. You have to provide the SQL Server instance name or server name, and then you have to provide the database in which your table is. In my case it is in test database. Hit OK. Hit OK. Here we will be providing a SQL statement, but we will be building our SQL statement. So we will go into the expressions. In the expressions, we will be going to the SQL statement source, and then here we'll go to expressions, and we are going to use that query what I showed you, but we will be using a little different way. So we have to put double quotes around here, and here we will be using the variable value of that file. Instead of hard coding, we will be using the variable. So let me use the variable. I put the double quotes, and then I put plus sign. Then I have file name variable coming here. Then I will put a plus sign, double quotes, and single quotes, because this file name, excuse me, this file name, we have to have a single quotes around it, as it is a variable, it is a string value, and that's how we will build our string. Go at the end, then we will provide double quotes as well, and evaluate expressions. And right now you can see that this is how it is evaluated. Let me copy it and show you in the SSMS. Go here, paste. So the only part here, the file name and the extension will be placed by the variable value at runtime. So we are good. Now hit OK, and the last thing what we need to do here, we go to the journal, and as it will return a 0 or 1, we can save, or we have to save that value in the result set. So we'll be using a single row, and now we'll be using result set tab here and saving that value. So we have to provide 0 here, and then add a new variable, and I can call this variable load status flag FLG, and it can be integer 32, integer 64 or whatever, because it is only 0 or 1, or you can use binary, whatever you like. I'm going to use integer 16, and it is an value must be declared or provided. I can provide any value right now. I can provide 100 or 200, doesn't matter, because this value will be overwritten by 0 or 1 when the query will run. So we are okay. Load status flag, hit OK. Next part is, if the file is not loaded, we know that it will return us 0. So we will bring the data flow task here, but we will use the presence constraint here to check what it is returning. So if it is returning us, we want this one to be successful. Also we want to check the expression. We will say load load status FLG is equal to 0. We are checking if it is returning a 0, then we want to go to the data flow task and load the file. That means this file was never loaded. Okay, hit OK. And if the file was already loaded, what we need to do, we need to bring a file system task here and move that file to the rejected folder. And here we will be saying 1. It means already loaded. If it is returning as 1, that's already loaded. If it is returning as 0, then not loaded. We can call it data flow task load new file. Here we will be creating the flow to load that file. So we will be using the source flat file source here. Open it, make a connection to the any file that you have, because our files are going to be the same file and the same metadata, and we can use any file, even the data is different. So we can go here, advanced, we can change the data type. Somebody told me I speak too fast, I'm trying to make it slow and that's the one reason I'm taking the thing slow. And retain null values from the source as null values in the data flow. That means if there are some blank values and you want to read them as null, you will check this box. Hit OK. Now we are all good. And then the last part is the OLEDB destination, and make a connection to the your table. We have already connection manager, and we know that our table is in the test database. We can use the customer table here for destination, map the columns, come in correctly, all good. But here is the one thing, as the file will be coming, we are loading it and we are hard coding for that file. We have to go back here and change the or use the expression in flat file connection manager. So on each of the new file it will use that variables. So what variables it is going to use? It is going to use two variables. One variable is a folder path, input folder. The second is a file name. So it will be used in as a concatenation. So we can actually create a new variable and we can call it a file full path. That will be combination of two variables. So we can go to expressions, and then we will be using a folder path, input folder, and then what we have here, we can add backslash, plus put the add sign, double quotes, backslash, to add back one single backslash, you have to add two backslashes in the expressions, and then we have a file name. That is the file name with extension. We are all good now. Now we go to the flat file connection manager properties, and then provide that full path here. We are going to use the connection string, expressions, file full path right here. We are all good. Now every time it will iterate or loop through, the new file will be used to load it. Next, the last thing we have to do, we have to configure our rejected folder, as well as we have to configure the archive folder after the load. So let's bring another file system task here and put it here and archive the file after loading. File. Now here we'll be using two variables. One is a file full path that tells us this is our source, and the next one file full path, so that's our source. We will move the file, move file, and then we'll be moving to the directory that's called archive folder. And if the file is existing there, override it, but that's not even going to be true, because we will never move those files to the folder here. If the file is already existing, we are going to move to the rejected. So this doesn't really matter. Hit OK, and here we will be doing the same thing, but we will be moving the file to the rejected folder path. So we have to use the rejected and we will be move the file. One thing, if you guys notice it, one major part is still missing. How this table will get those records if the file is existing or not existing. We did not write the file name to this table at all. So what we have to do after loading the file successfully, what we want to do, we want to update actually or insert the record in this table, and that's how it will have the entry for each of the load it is doing. So we'll be using Execute SQL Task here, and then after the load we will be saying connection test, and we say insert into load status table. Let's take this one, we can copy, go back, insert into, and here we can say file name, that's our column, and values, and we can put parentheses and put a question mark here, and we are going to use the variable. So that's how you will insert the records. With the question mark is the value, but this value will be coming from the map, one of the variables. So we'll go to parameter mappings, add that. So in this case, if you guys notice, we have used the file name that has file name and extension, and this is a string, and here we don't have string, and we have a varchar, so we can use varchar. Here in the parameter name we have to provide the index, so we are using the very first parameter, so that's we have to provide 0. Hit OK, and here we can say execute SQL task, insert file name. These packages take a whole lot of time, but you will not be creating these packages in 30 minutes, and there would be some requirements. You will be spending probably 2 days to create these packages, test it in different environments and everything. So let's run our SSIS package now, and here what we have in the input folder, we have 3 files sitting. So let's run it. We don't have any record in the customer table as of now. Run the package. Let's see if I have missed everything, or no, I didn't miss anything, so that's great. So I don't have to debug. That's good news. So let's run the select query. It should return us 3 records. So it did, 1 from Asia, 2 from Europe. That's great. Now in the input folder we don't see that, and if you go to the package, what you see, it came here, it validated it, say okay, the file is not existing in the table. We never load that file. Load the file, archive the file, and insert the entry. So let's go and check the entry for our table. So here we'll do select star from. Now we see there are 3 entries for those files. Let me go and get those files from the archive folder. So they are here. I'm going to copy them, and then I'm show you rejected folder. We don't have anything. I'm going to go to input folder again and put this file here, paste. And now actually let me do one more thing. I'm going to copy and paste here. Now we have copy one. This is new file because this file name does not exist in the table, and these are the three. So these three should go to rejected, and here I'm going to actually EU copy, so I show you one record will be inserted. If I run this one now, these three files should be moved to the rejected, and this one should be going to the archive and should be loaded. So let's run our SSIS package to check the functionality on both sides of this branch. Wow, that's great. One file is rejected, three files are rejected, one file is loaded. That's my assumption because I see the green and I say okay, everything worked. But there could be scenarios it didn't work as expected. So let's go and verify. So stop the package. Let's check the status. It should have put one more record here for the copy, so we have that. It means at some point it did work. And next we need to check the data in the table, so we should have one record with copy as well, so that worked. Last thing, we need to go and check the archive. In the archive we should have 4 because the copy was new one and it has moved, and we should have 3 in the rejected because these files were already loaded. So that's how you will be build your detailed package with these all scenarios. One major thing you want to do it, you might want to send an email and tell them how many files are rejected. So you can go back to this table where we have all the file names for already loaded or whatever. So maybe you can put a filter here, and if the files are coming back here, instead of just rejecting them, you can input an entry there and say okay, you want to insert the file name in that table, but the filter should be this file was already loaded. And then you can query that table and send an email, or put some entry in other maybe reporting. You can use that table in reporting, whatever you want to use for, and that's how you would know that okay, the people are sending you the files over and over with the same name. So thanks very much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next video.